We're very privileged this afternoon to have Maxwell Hutchinson as our keynote speaker. He's an architect, broadcaster and Anglican deacon, a former president of the Royal Institute of British Architects. Maxwell is a broadcaster of some note, having written and presented a number of programme series for a variety of radio and television companies, and has founded a charity, having been involved in the 2014 tsunami. He's a gifted guitarist, plays the piano and composes, and as a practicing architect has designed a myriad of buildings, including Pink Floyd's Britannia Row recording studios. And his client there was Nick Mason, I believe. He's also, at the Jubilee celebrations, he was on Sky Television outside St Paul's Cathedral, broadcasting from there. I could wax lyrical about his interests and achievements for most of the afternoon, but suffice it to say, having been born in the same year, I can only dream of achieving a minute percentage of what this man has done in his 74 years. Please welcome Maxwell Hutchinson. I've asked you to any questions you have, please feel free to interrupt. He will take questions as they come.
You can interrupt me at any time. I'm an architect entirely at your mercy. Will someone tell me how many CPD points I get for this? I set up CPD for architects when I was president. They've never forgiven me. But CPD is usually this way round. Architects turn up in front of people like you to be educated about them. It should be the other way around as well. You should get CPD points for coming to listen to me. We're talking about what we've achieved in our ages. Let it be known that when Christopher Wren designed St Paul's Cathedral and 51 city churches, he was only 33. So you better get on with it. There's an awful lot to do. Well, I've been all ears for what you've been talking about today. And the first thing I can say is we're all part of the same industry. I never normally talk about myself at these things. It's a rule, but I will on this occasion. My father was an architect, a marvellous, marvellous man. That old gentleman architect with a bow tie, suede shoes, a waistcoat, and a sports car with white wall tyres. It was a Sunbeam Alpine, I think. But everybody else's dad was really grey and dull, whereas my father was spectacularly interesting. So much so that he brought me into this building when I was about 8 or 10. And he pointed out to me that this was called the building centre, because that's what we do. And I trust you. If you tell me that it meets a British standard, it's going to last, I trust you. You're going to tell me what you need to tell me about your products, and then I trust you. If someone tells me it's stainless steel, I believe them. If you tell me that it's a good enduring material, I'll believe you. So you have quite a degree of trust. Marcus Vitruvius Pollio was Julius Caesar's architect, and he wrote books about architecture just to ensure that Roman buildings all over the world were based on the same standard, the same way as you have your standards in your industry. So Vitruvius, as he was known, set up building standards for Roman buildings everywhere. And he wrote these famous books on architecture, which were rediscovered and started the Renaissance. And he has an epigram that I'd like you to remember. He said about all buildings, firmness, commodity, and delight. Please remember that. Firmness, it has to stand up. Commodity, it has to serve its function. And delight. In looking at buildings today, you're responsible for the first two, and I'm responsible for the third. Only architects can make it delightful. But you can tell me what your products can do. They don't just have to be flat planning. Tell me what colour they can be, what they can do, how they can be jointed, how they turn corners. Because architects, certainly architects like me, will be all ears. The possibilities of materials and how they can work is something that most architects would love to hear. We don't want to believe that powder coating is just sheets of coloured material. Can we curve it? Didn't tell me that today, can we?
Yes.
So we can wrap it around columns, can we?
Yes.
Yeah, you didn't tell me that today.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you very much. That's the sort of information I want. And you can make it look like copper, can't you? Can you make it look like lead?
And rusty steel.
Pardon?
Rusty steel.
Oh, you make it look like Corten.
Yes.
Oh, I love Corten. That's really good news, thank you. Is that, do you powder coat it with the rust? Do you really?
Colour, yes. Not iron oxide, but a colour.
Oh, is that like taking a pair of new jeans and just cutting holes in them so it looks old? Is that one difference between your materials and most others that I know from the building industry, like brick and stone, lead, slate, concrete tiles, as they get older, they get more graceful. Rather like old architects. I mean, second-hand London stock bricks are more expensive than new London stock bricks because people feel comforted and warmed by the idea of old things in their lives. And you don't have that benefit, do you? It's all shiny and new, except you just told me I can have it all rusty and new as well. Can I have it? Can you print shapes onto the powder coating?
In Boston you can, yes.
So I could have lettering on it, could I?
Yes.
Or I could have patterns. Should I want it? And should I forget the modernist expression that ornament is a crime? So why should I possibly want to add ornament to what you do so beautifully? But what you do is important to what we do. We need it. And I tell my radio listeners, I had a weekly radio programme on BBC London for 25 years until the pandemonium. And now I only do one Sunday a month. But I tell my listeners, and people stop me in the street and remind me of this, there's only 3 things you have to bear in mind when you look at the building. How does it meet the ground? How does it meet the sky? And what happens in between? And you're in the in-between bit of the business. But when we looked at the buildings that you've shown us, could you do it in stove enamel panels? Does anybody know? My father, that I mentioned, was an architect. He would use stove enamel. And for the early curtain walling that he did in back-painted glass. And he trusted Crittall with N5 sections that were galvanised. He'd leave them galvanised. But he trusted, as we should. Now, what you have also talked about is how your products fare on building sites. I was at Broadgate the other day because my train comes into Liverpool Street, and they're doubling the size of the Broadgate centre. There was a massive hole in the road and a massive building site, one of the most hostile manufacturing facilities in the world. Just think about it. We take a site in the middle of a city and we clear it away and we put a site establishment in it. An office, latrines, mess facilities, health and safety, and then we start bringing goods in and goods out. So the fact that the things that you make, the materials and products that you make, survive is frankly amazing. It's all piled up. How do you quality control that? You make something that you tell me works, and then you hand it over to a contractor. You have approved applicators. You were trained, and presumably they're subcontractors, are they? You're all nodding. Am I getting it right? So you make a wonderful product that lasts, and then you have approved applicators that presumably fit into your standards, and they become subcontractors to the main contractors. I've talked about us being all in the same industry, in the construction industry. And people don't trust us. We're builders. They don't trust us because we're always late and we always cost too much money. And as far as my profession is concerned, they don't like what we design anyway. But when we look at what we design, I mean it and I'll say it again, tell me what other possibilities your material can give. The architectural job is an enormously complicated process. Going back to my father, after the war, I remember being with him when he was taken by a regional hospital board to a site on the outskirts of Lincoln. And he pointed at the site, the man with him, and said, "Mr. Hutchinson, we want 350-bedroom general hospital there." And that's the challenge that we all have. The most difficult challenges I've had are building a building in a gap site by a canal. And we're given the site, and we're told what goes into it, and the rest is up to us and to you. So I can draw and draw and draw again, and draw in pencil as I do. And I can think about the density of the town planners and the daylighting and sunlighting and the whole cocktail of issues that start a building. And then I have to think what materials I'm going to finish it in. Am I going to clad it in brickwork? Is it a load-bearing skin, or is there a frame? And if I do all of that, at some point, if it's a frame, I've got to think about what I can clad it in. And there are not actually, within a city, many options, particularly post-Grenfell. It can't be flammable. I can't use timber in any way. I can use lead, but it's probably too expensive. I can use zinc, but it's probably too expensive. I do quite like using tiles, clay tiles, hung on battens to make it warm. But everything I've heard today encourages me to believe that you can probably give me some ideas about how to clad it. So don't be shy. And do work with the architects. Please don't have an adversarial attitude. We must all work more closely together. This building, besides being everything that it was and everything that it is, it's also the home of the Construction Industry Council, which I set up with Ted Apple of Borough Apple, the engineers. The idea was to bring all branches of the construction industry together and become the representative body for the construction industry to government, which sadly it doesn't do. And it's well that we remind government, and you should do this through your MPs if you can, the construction industry is the largest employer of manpower in the country, of which all of us in this room are part. And I used to have a formula which I forgot. I count the number of tower cranes in London, and I multiply it by a factor that shows the state of the economy. And the man I work with on the radio is called Robert Elms. He's married to a Chinese lady. And apparently for Chinese, cranes are a good omen. So they count the cranes, and we count the cranes. And London's looking pretty busy at the moment. How's business, by the way? Is it going all right? I don't see you smiling particularly. And by the way, you're allowed to interrupt me at any time. And I wish you would, because I would rather this was more of a discussion. So you're going to remember firmness, commodity, and delight, aren't you? And you're in the delight. Well, I'm in the delight business, but you've got to make it firm. It's got to stay there. It's got to do its job. And when you help architects detail your products, remember the things that they're really concerned about. They're very, very concerned about expansion joints and movement joints, obviously weather penetration, and make sure they've got drips in the right place. And if you're doing sills, make sure there's a good enough slope on the sill, and that there is a drip on the undersand side of it. These are things you can do help with, and condensation and interstitial condensation. So don't be shy. You say, tell your architect, I think we should put an expansion joint in there. And because that floor is meeting the columns at that point, a movement joint, which presumably within your materials, you can easily accommodate. And help them with that because they need it. And they also need to be reassured by you that your approved applicators are fixing it in accordance with your recommendations. I've always said to my students when they're inspecting the site, they never do anything on the site other than inspect. Never ever instruct, only inspect. So as you walk around the building site as an architect, you can look at it and you can write down if you don't like it, but don't start telling any builder what to do. And as far as snagging is concerned, this is a bugbear. I turned to the contractor. He said, "What are you going to do with snagging this?" And I said, "I'm not going to do the snagging this. When your building's finished, you can present it to me. And if it's not finished, I'm not ready to receive it and giving a final certificate." The other thing I would say is, be very careful. Architects issue things called architect's certificates, which is an instruction to the general contractor, instruction to the client to pay the general contractor. And the quantity surveyor normally does the valuation. But I always say, you must never instruct the client to pay good money for bad work. And I would rather expect you to tell me if you're unhappy with your applicants, so that we can all get it right together. We don't want people to mistrust the building industry. We're always like, we always cost too much. Don't we? We don't like our buildings, so we've done them anyway.
So how do we talk to the architects? How are they going to engage with us?
How are they going to liaise?
How are the architects going to engage with us?
Well, you presumably are persuading the architects to specify your products, aren't you?
They don't talk to us. They need to talk to us before they put a pen on the before
Yes, they do.
have the pen.
This is music to my ears. Well, why don't they?
I don't know. That's the purpose of today. Get the architects here today.
Well, I've been sitting here all day from the start, and I'm certainly going to say this is a welcoming industry that will help you do what you've got to do.
So to be honest, if the architects talk to the powder coaters and the aluminium industry before they even touch their cat and mouse, we can open their eyes and really elevate.
Well, that's fantastic. That's exactly what I'm asking you to do. Help me do my job. I've got an awful lot to think about while you're thinking about the powder coating and everything that goes with it. I'm thinking about the drains and the air conditioning.
We're working on a project with Trinity Lighthouse. And you know that when they got rid of the lighthouse keepers, they put helicopter towers on them.
Yes.
Galvanised iron. All that's coming off because the helicopters are too heavy, rotted away. Guess what? Aluminium's going to replace it.
Well, these are really, really good stories. You can get in touch with architects directly.
Anything that flies in the sky, crawls on the ground, or drives in it, these days is heading for aluminium. We're not getting that up with you guys. Max,
Help me, will you?
Can I check something? Am I the only other architect in this room? Or are there some architects? There are architects who are used to work in this industry. But, so there are actually only two of us. But to be fair to Jan and Alfred, which is the overall UK aluminium industry, we have just started something called the Aluminium and Architecture Forum. So we, Jeanette Wilkinson has spoken the last event. So in a sense, it is something that we're trying to do, and in that sense, the Building Centre is an honourable place for this discussion because it is a meeting point for the whole industry.
Yes.
Whereas the Institute, the Royal Institute of British Architects, we tend to talk to ourselves.
Yes, we do, don't we? But this is a wonderful place. I told you my father brought me here. This started in the basement of the Architectural Association, just around the corner, which is an association of architects that run, excuse me, you come from the bar, but I'll say I'll say they run the best architectural school in the world.
I mean, in terms of even something like a simple powder coat, you can have it brick, you can have it rusty steel. Yes, we can match colour. I bet we can give you lead. And it will last, and it's lightweight, and it's easily durable. If you want it to go around the corner, we can do it around the corner. We can texture it.
Well, this is wonderful news. I can tell you that my profession would love to know this. It isn't just plain sheets of coloured material.
But is that the problem then, that the messages from this side of the industry are making it to your side of the
No,
industry?
they're absolutely not. I've learned.
So we all have an awful lot of work to do. I would admit the aim today was to get architects and specifiers here to listen to us talking
Yes.
about it. We've ended up with two that are our
Well,
So, yeah.
because I've met you all, I trust you, I like you. So, what can I do? I'm on my own.
Yeah.
Can I just make a suggestion? There are two of us. Yes, please do.
I'm Conway. You're a Conway?
Conway.
Yeah, I started off with architecture, and then I'm going to.
Can you speak up so we can hear you?
I got into supply, manufacturing, and site assembly. So aluminium, basically what we do, seems to many to be somewhat mysterious. We don't speak with the same message. So you get suppliers usually telling you what the other product doesn't do, not what is possible with theoretically. I think so. The CWCT made an effort when they tried to copy a German polygon. I don't think we have an education platform as an industry, a source of knowledge that people can just that is accessible, like. You've got the Steel Construction Institute that you can go and read everything about steel. We haven't got that from you. And maybe that's part of the answer. Maybe that's part of if people in this room just come together and form this place where they can share information that is accessible to other stakeholders. And the industry right now, because of Grenfell, we were reminded that the anniversary is very adversarial. Maybe it wasn't always adversarial. Maybe people were always blaming each other. But right now, we're to the point where every word, every wrong word puts you one step closer to a lawsuit. So nobody wants to say anything anymore. So basically, I just have that one idea, one suggestion. Maybe a knowledge sharing place is a good way to start.
It is. If I've got a problem with brickwork, I automatically bring up the brickwork development agency. And likewise with concrete, I bring the concrete society. And they're on the end of the telephone, and I mean the telephone. And of course they've got websites and email addresses, and they help. If I'm trying to source a brick of a certain kind, not necessarily an imperial size brick, something else, if I ring up the BDA, the Brick Development Association, they will help me. And what you're saying is we need something for aluminium, an aluminium product. So
It is.
There is.
there is.
Yes.
What is the Aluminium Federation?
Why don't I know about it? I've already mentioned the Brick Development Association.
Wasn't that the idea behind NBS spec?
Sorry.
Wasn't that the idea behind NBS spec and NBS chorus? Was to try and get the industry talking to the architects and engaging on the specification. I mean, we're part of that platform, which is, I believe, paid to REBA, but we still struggle to have those conversations with architects.
Well, let's do something about it. Let the people in this room do something about it. I'm not quite sure standing up here, apart from asking you for a powder-coated aluminium walking stick, please.
I'd like to engage you, Max. You said about the key word, which is trust.
Yes.
You two are learned colleagues. We accept because you engaged with us, so you were here.
Yes.
The key to us actually getting involved with the architect profession is that key word, is trust. We are not seen, and I represent the industry, and we are not seen professional enough sometimes, which is really not accurate, and it's seen when we actually discuss things. We are trying to be more complex and have different answers to different problems, different questions. But the platform that Jan was talking about is actually there. We try very hard to be engaged with architects, but that's opportunity to open up, because we have our REBA accredited CPD that we do. I and other members actually go and talk about it. But the opportunities are very few and far between, and the engagement is less and less. And the key message, I think, is, as you said, is trust. They need to get us, and I thank you for trusting us, but more of your colleagues need to trust us, because then we can actually push this industry even forward and address some of the key questions that, like Michael has sometimes. Why can't we have more durable, facades and that? But only together we can do that, because otherwise we can either run parallel or even run, apart.
Well, I'm not prepared, as a result of today, I'm not prepared to let this issue go. You've got to sort it out, and I will help in any way I can.
I've got two hats. As QUALICOAT Secretariat, I think I've had about 18 inquiries from architects about powder coats that went wrong. Now, invariably, it wasn't the powder coat that went wrong, it was the specification, or they'd used some stupid thing, or they'd used a cowboy down the back end who basically does motorbikes and will do your building as well if you want. And on the other hand, I'm technical manager of the Aluminium Federation, and I've had about 12 inquiries from architects, again with serious aluminium fundamental questions. We invited all of them to come to this event. So they had a personal invitation from me with the flyer saying, please come to this. Sadly, it fell on deaf ears.
You have chosen the most beautiful day of the year. Yes. Can I just put a practical slant on this as well? Yes. As a powder coater, and ask you to appeal to the architects. We have done two projects which I won't mention. One was in aluminium and one was in galvanised steel. And we invited the architect and the client and the adjacent subcontractors to a forum, and we went to see each other's plant and each other's manufacturing facility, and we got to understand everybody's issues. And the architect became part of the team, and they were the two most successful projects we've ever done. And I would like you to take back to the architect, not the fact that we're necessarily trying to sell them a product, because, and I think genuinely that's what they think, is that we're only talking to them because we want to sell them things. I think the majority of people here want to talk to architects because we understand the minutiae of the detail. They need to understand that, or at least have a trust in the people that they're engaging with to take that forward. And I'd like you to take back to the REBA or whoever you choose to, the fact there's a body of people who want to support you and not, yes, okay, it's a commercial transaction, but it's something that will save you time, money, complexity, because you will develop and become part of the team. And that is what people here essentially are saying. And I know that we do feel as if the architects do not want openly to become part of the team because they feel that they will become compromised in some sort of way. And as I say to them, we're in Corby in Northamptonshire. We are one stop, 1 hour, one train away from every architect in London, and I'll pick you up from the station. Who else would do that? You will go from East London to West London, 2 hours, 2 stops, and quite a long walk. We're closer to you in the provinces than you are to each other in the capital. So come and engage with us. There's the Aluminium Federation, there's QUALICOAT, there are other August organisations. We are here to support you. That's what we're here for. Architects need this help.
Yes.
When I set up,
You need to tell them.
when I set up in practice, I'll never forget this. There was an announcement in the Architects Journal, and one of my first visitors was Mr. Dennis from Crittall Home, and he started to help me. He'd look and say, "We can do that in so-and-so, we can do that in so-and-so." And I used Crittall windows thereafter. And he was on the end of the phone, and his name was Mr. Dennis. I'll never forget it. Because he said, "Oh, we could get a little window in there. We can use M7 sections there." And then he'd send me some drawings. And the same happened with the man from Key Terrain Drainage. he knocked on the door to congratulate me on setting up a practice. And then he would help me with my drainage for years and years, and that's what you want to happen.
Little windows are powder coated, by the way. Go say. Little windows are powder coated.
Are they? They're galvanised.
And powder coated.
Oh well, here we go. I didn't know that. I don't think, Chairman, that we ought to let this go after this meeting. Well, I'm prepared to do something. Somehow, with your help.
We'll take everybody's name and address, obviously, from here, and perhaps we can all kind of share some
Well, I need
ideas.
to get together a group of us to think how we're going to influence. Give architects help with something. You probably don't think this, but I'm telling you, the same way as I trust you, I hope you'll trust me. It's extraordinarily difficult to make a decent living as being an architect. So we need all the help we can get. We need the Mr. Dennises of this world, don't we? My colleague at the back's laughing.
But as QUALICOAT and as Alfred, we aren't selling anything. We're here to provide a service. First stop, knock on our door. If you don't know, we'll point you to someone who does, or we'll find out for you. That's all we do. We
Well, we ought
don't
to do
just
something about it. We're all sitting here in this underground room and the sun's beaming down outside. There's a pub across the road. So we've got to do
Chris,
my attention.
Sorry?
You have my attention now.
I don't know who I talk to, but I'm not prepared to let this one go.
I've got a question to Chris, sorry, with the organising here, but we had a background in windows and doors, and the PVC industry was amazing at marketing, and the aluminium guys over the years were not, which is why PVC had obviously the sort of growth that it did. I think that's a change that's happening, and I think Chris, as someone in that industry, you've probably seen that perhaps the aluminium market needs better. I would say this as a marketeer, but I think it needs better marketing. And I think that we need to tell people. Our experience with QUALICOAT is that not everybody knows about it, and I think we've all admitted that here. And I think maybe it's the same with aluminium as well.
But we're not going to let this go.
No,
So I make that undertaking. I will help you in any way I can, but the initiative has to be yours. And I look around the room completely. Who's going to pick this one up and run with it?
Giving you a card.
I'll happily take any other cards, provided you take one of mine. I'll guess one thing. My card's bigger than yours. Sorry, you had your hand up, my colleague at the back.
I think in this discussion we should feed in two other organisations, because the International Aluminium Institute is based here in London, and they, they're perhaps as global as QUALICOAT is. And then we do have the Council for Aluminium in Buildings, which is in Gloucestershire, and I think their intention is to be specific about aluminium buildings.
We've got knowledge partnerships with all of those. We're active with all of those.
So, but, and I'm in danger of being tempted to answer personally, because you earlier on you told me you were taught by Peter Cook and Seneca Price, who are two great architects of Britain, and Peter Cook was part of a movement called QUALICOAT that really imagined the future in the era of the region. And we, at my university, have a knowledge partnership in Alfred. So the next generation coming through, trying to know as much about aluminium as they do about lime water.
Well, they need to know about lime water as well, do they not? But the same way as a painter chooses his material in which to paint, and as you show the sculpture chooses their principal material. Aluminium could become more of a first thought to architects, but it's up to you, isn't it? It's up to the industry. Do you agree?
Apologies, Grant, let me give you a thought. Many years ago, at Poly, I did a metallurgy degree. We had a 2-hour lecture on aluminium. Everything else was steel. If you did in the good old days when you could do a metallurgy degree, it was a 4-hour lecture on aluminium. These days, there is no such thing as a metallurgy degree.
And what we're going to do,
So how are architects going to learn? We need to do those lectures for you guys.
what we're going to do as part of the initiative that we're going to follow up, we're going to have a competition, an open competition. I'm happy to help write the brief for it, for the most imaginative pavilion built out of powder-coated aluminium. When you leave here today, there's a pavilion, a structure in the forecourt outside here. So we're going to replace that with a powder-coated aluminium pavilion, and we're going to have a competition for all architects in the forecourt of this building. That will certainly get people to notice. And we'll call the evening standard and make sure that they're there for the opening ceremony. Is that a plan?
Yeah, absolutely, sir.
Yeah. So we're right there, and this pavilion has to be useful in some way. It has to be a tourist information booth. I can't come up with it all just standing here now. But you're going to supply the materials for this for nothing, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
And we're going to give a prize. Not much, quite frankly. So are you offering to be a judge?
There is that danger.
But I'm relying on you.
Yes, no problem.
There are some large aluminium companies in this room, being distributors and or producers. I bet that we can twist arms to give you the material that was produced. We can have the one.
And we can publicise it online. There are all sorts of architectural magazines online now, interior ones, World Architecture. So that's the way to get out there.
Happy to donate some aluminium decking, by the way.
Thank you. And also,
I'm in there.
and I can mention this en passant, my radio program.
Yes.
But I'll be mentioning it mainly as an architectural competition that just happens to be out of powder-coated aluminium. Now,
Big rusty iron colour. Yes.
we can do some rusty iron as well. I'm going to leave you very shortly now. I'm going to leave you with this thought. Surgeons bury their mistakes. Architects can only advise their clients to grow vines. Are there any more questions or comments or observations, please?
I think that's a very good way to wrap it up, Maxwell. And thank you very much for your time. It's been brilliant.
Thank you very much.